Aquino. Roll call, please.
President Martinez,
Here.
Vice President Gutierrez, Member John,
Here.
Member Nguyen,
Here.
Member Rodriguez.
Here.
Before we go ahead and approve the agenda, can I ask everyone to stand for the pledge? I know we've brushed the agenda structure, but ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, we move to item 2, approval of the agenda. Can I get?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Can I get a second? I second. Next item is item 2.2, public comment on, oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to get to those business. Let me open voting. Apologize. Please vote. Okay. Not displaying. Vote by hand. Please vote. 5 ayes.
Once.
4 ayes. Geez, thank you. I will get it together. Apologize very much. Okay, moving on to item 2, which is 2.2, sorry. Public comment on non-agenda items. I do not see any speaker cards. Anybody else? Anybody? Okay. With that, we move to item 3, which is new business. 3.1, suspension of in-classroom instruction. I do have 2 speaker cards. Mr. Carriou.
Good afternoon in these trying times. First of all, I'd like to commend the board and superintendent for making this a public meeting. There are some districts in our neighborhood who deem this a closed session item, and I disagree because this is not it's a public emergency, but it's not something that needs to be hidden from the public because of items that the public is not privy to. In this case, we all know what this is about. So I commend the board for doing that. Technically, I think the superintendent is entitled to close schools anyway, whether you guys like it or not. Of course, it's nice to get a resolution for that, but sometimes it's important to act swiftly. And my comment is a little bit towards Alameda County. How much has Alameda County been instrumental in organizing this? Because my impression is they're not. Unlike Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County talked with the school district and said we're going to close as a whole, and that's not happening in Alameda County. So I think our county folks should be on the money on this as well, and not just leave it up to individual school sites. Because when the kids go out of school, they're kind of in limbo, and the teachers are kind of in limbo. And I understand that nobody can say, make a heart like it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. One more question is, so the technical question about, stopping the instruction from at the school site. I just want to make sure we have the right terminology because we don't want to get unintended impact for staff. I'm thinking about certificated, but also classified. We want to make sure we do the right thing, and I'm sure our governor is now rewriting emergency laws to make sure that we get things settled, but let's not get ourselves caught into technicality. So I assume we're doing exactly the same thing as our neighboring districts do in terms of terminology and approaching this. I was a little bit confused by earlier news items that were released, so I think it's good to get some clarification about it, that we don't just do things slightly different because we think, we're saving ADA or whatever, and then later on finding out, like, wait, we shouldn't have done that. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. New. Mr. Merritt.
Good afternoon. I would like to say thank you for holding this meeting, and I want to publicly comment on the actions and the interactions that I've had with scary topic for a lot of people, and she has worked tirelessly to accomplish this and work with our labor partners. And as the president of NTA, I'm especially grateful to be able to work with her on this. So thank you, Superintendent Salinas. Thank you, Board, for taking action. I do want to stress that that as far as we know at this point, there are no cases in Newark, no exposures in Newark, but it is abundantly clear that there's a lot of fear going on, and the spread is happening quickly, and we do need to proceed with a lot of caution, but we do need to proceed. As a classroom teacher, I'm sad to let the kids go home because I'm not sure that's necessarily the best for them, but also, we struggle with what has to happen in the community. I also want to say that, I'm not going to say which grade I was in, but in 1980, May 18th, it was a Sunday, Mount St. Helens erupted. We lived about 200 miles away from Mount St. Helens, and by Monday morning, we were told the school is closed for the rest of the year. And it was May 18th, so it was towards the end of the year, and we survived. I may be missing a little bit of geometry, but don't tell anybody that. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. And with that, I will ask Superintendent Salinas to please discuss items 3.1, the agenda proposal.
Yes, thank you, Board of Education, members of the community, and certainly our staff. As you all have been watching the news and hearing from other school districts and certainly our neighbors in our community, we are really upon a very troubling time where we really have taken some really careful deliberations to what we should do as Newark Unified School District. I do want to give a little bit of very brief background. Once we did begin our work with Alameda County Office of Education, they really were great partners with all school districts, and literally hour by hour in the last few days, every day we've been on the phone with all county superintendents so that we're all doing very similar work, but at the same time ensuring that we are cognizant of our labor agreements, our labor partners are in the loop, and certainly our community. We have tried to update as much as we could on our website and pushing out notifications to our families. And we know we can always do better there, but I have to say that because it is such an evolving, dynamic issue and problem in our community, we had to keep changing and updating. I want to share that for today, the action and the resolution that we're putting forward is really in the abundance of caution. Thank you, Mr. Merrick. You're right. There are no confirmed cases in school districts within Alameda County that we know of. But what we do know is that our neighbors and our families are certainly very nervous, and at the same time we have a lot of family members who have been asked to work from home. There was a lot of worry out there, and as we spoke with other superintendents, and as we noticed also that a lot of, once a school district closes, we know that a lot of our teachers and our staff members don't necessarily live in Newark. And so they then it ends up being like a domino effect where they need support with caregiving for their own children. So if a school district closes and they happen to be there, that's really what triggers the whole Alameda County. So we were cognizant of that. And I think the other piece was about what's now being termed as social distancing. We want to make sure, the guidance keeps changing. At one point they said no more than 1,000, then it was no more than 250 students and adults in a mass gathering, and now we're hearing as little as 100. So we believe that school is an essential function, and to speak to the wording, we've been advised by Alameda County Office of Education to really look at the wording of suspending in-classroom instruction. As we spoke with our labor partners, Mr. Merritt, and also with Ms. Eustace, And really with also with NUMA, although not a contract, but certainly our managers that do so much work to make sure schools keep running. What we heard from them was, and what we shared was, we know school won't continue the way it's supposed to continue. School is really, we're looking for some continuity of instruction. And so we've sent out some guidance to all staff last night as to what that would look like with some virtual touch points with our students, some packets of work that could be given to families that don't have access to technology. And also we're, upon the board's approval, our schools would be working to even look at the possibility at the elementary sites of Chromebooks. But we would have to really, we have a plan for that, and we will move forward on very isolated cases per the approval of our principals. I want to also share that we don't come to this lightly, as I know the board doesn't, because you know that the function of our schools are paramount to a community. Last night and in the past, I have been in contact with our city manager, and he's aware of this, and he's on our My Phone tree, and so we've been keeping him up to date. I know that many of you have been reaching out to the mayor and to the council as well to really check in, because certainly when a school district closes, it impacts our city. So the city manager is aware that we're having this emergency meeting. So my recommendation is, based on all of this, I am recommending that we suspend classroom instruction and have our schools closed for daily instruction to our students. And after speaking with our labor partners, we are also proposing the moving of our spring break to earlier. So what we are proposing is this, that on Monday, March 17th, we would be open with as a minimum day. And what that would mean is that students would, I apologize, thank you. March 16th, we would be open, students that choose to come to school would come to school and then would have an early release. Allowing teachers and staff the remainder of the day to get their rooms in order, to ensure that they have collected all their personal belongings. And then on March 17th, Tuesday, folks would not report to work. That would be from March 17th through the 20th. That's a Tuesday to a Friday. Then we would continue with the suspension of in-class instruction and closure of the schools from March 23rd through March 27th. That would be 5 days, Monday through Friday. And then our spring break would be moved up to start March 30th through April 3rd. And that would take the place of spring break, with classes resuming on Monday, April 6th. And we will be sure, and please know that this is going to be on the website, we will communicate this all pending board approval. And why I say that is our expectation for classes to resume on Monday, April 6th. As you know, this is a dynamic situation. So with the resolution that you are acting upon today, as some community members shared, certainly I can have direction to do it, but what the resolution really solidifies is that you're designating where we would, I can have that discretion as things start to evolve. And our hope is that it doesn't. But if things take a turn for the worse within Alameda County or within our school sites, then I would be able to act and to continue to extend this closure. And then we would really go into closure and suspension of classroom instruction. So again, not lightly, we are very similar to our neighbors looking at 3 weeks. There's some few exceptions out there of 4 weeks, but we thought it was better to see what Newark and, what Fremont and New Haven and Hayward, our partners close by, where really a lot of our staff also lives. So it was important to also work together on that. So I want to share that after the board has questions and discussion, I do have some closing comments that would explain some of the next steps, and I can share that if the board so chooses to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Salinas. Questions, comments from the board?
Just to tell, I know, like you mentioned earlier, everything is by the hour, day by day.
However, let's say April 4th, April 6th comes around, and you just wanted to get the picture of what it looks like, and you feel that it's still not adequate to open schools, what does that look like, that process?
So know that I will be working, and some of our essential staff will be working. So I anticipate not waiting until that Sunday to let folks know. We would probably reconvene as a staff with my essential staff to make a decision, and certainly if you look at the resolution with consultation with the board, and then put that information out.
Thank you.
Member Rodriguez?
Thank you, Superintendent Salinas, and the community for being on board. It's a very difficult time, anxiety, and one of the things, you know, I know we take pride in the fact that there's been no, schools up until today closed, and there's been no, none of our kids or parents in our communities has caught the virus. So we feel very fortunate, but we don't live in a bubble. And we have a lot of parents that live in Santa Clara County and other places, that work there. So this is a prudent thing to do. I appreciate the partnership we have with our union partners, and it's so very important. So a couple questions that I had is, if the emergency stays on, first you have the state declared emergency, now you have the national emergency. As far as ADA, because if you're open for a day, let's say you're talking about Monday, and only have the kids show up, is that something that we can recover because it is a national emergency? And then if teachers don't feel like coming in, I don't want them to be penalized because of it. If they decide they don't want to come in, let's say we're just talking about Monday, or when the 2 weeks are over. And then the last question I have is in reference to spring break, moving spring break. We have a lot of parents that have already made plans for the spring break that was going to be, later on after Easter. So that week, that after Easter, that was going to be spring break, is it possible, would it be okay if parents got, let's say, a 5-day kit for their children so that they could study during that week, and if they can change their plans, so we can still get, revenue from it? Okay.
Great questions. I'm going to start with the ADA. I actually have another conference call with the superintendent, with Ms. Monroe at 3 o'clock, and they know I might be late, where we're looking at more what that process would be to appeal for the ADA at this point. And it may all be moot if Governor Newsom takes some further action for the state of California. In New York, there has been legislation as late as last night where the legislators took action to hold districts harmless and not lose ADA. So we are working with Superintendent Monroe so that we can, the possibility of something jointly, but they would certainly give us the next steps. At this point, we don't, my understanding is that there are waivers that we can do, but again, it's the language, and we're trying to do this together as a county. That's as much as I have now, and I'm happy to send that information to the board after this afternoon's phone call. In terms of Monday, right now we are designating that as a work day. So if a staff member has compromised immunity or is feeling that they cannot come in to work on Monday, at this point it would be a sick day, and we certainly can look at individual cases and work with our labor presidents. But at this point, that is a work day. In terms of our students, students have been, and staff, but students for the most part, if they would like to not come to school because of family members or compromised immunity or other things like that, they have been allowed to be on independent study and to have that absence once the work comes back is excused. At this point, we're not really preparing for, your question was questions about spring break later on.
Right.
Sorry, it's been a long,
Too many questions.
no, it's good. It's just, in terms of spring break, so we know that if and we're hoping, we're back in on April 6th, and then folks certainly have plans, and the airlines are flying out, and people are able to go to their vacation spots, we certainly would work with our families, and they can do independent study, absolutely. In terms of our employees, we would work with our labor leaders to, it looks like if we have an employee that has a non-refundable ticket to somewhere during that spring break, we would do that on a case-by-case basis so that we could validate and see that we would work with them so that they can take that time.
Could you describe the independent study kit that the kids are going to have?
So, yes,
If you have a minute.
So we sent out an email last night to our staff and this morning to all families. So we have been working with our teachers and Mr.